Also, I really appreciate you being able to do this last minute.
Sure, with pleasure. Thanks for hosting this and creating it. And you guys came with great questions.
Oh, well, good. I'm glad that you approve. Yeah, really excited to be talking about this topic, especially as CharmVerse is really building out our proposal builder right now. So it's pretty much on topic for us and what we're discussing currently.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I see that you're a DAO launcher, so of sorts. So yeah, I bet these questions are on the table for you guys.
Yeah, we're just trying to make it easier for DAOs to, yeah, have governance and, build their proposals and votes and along with all the other stuff we offer with task management and bounties and all that stuff. So, well, why don't we jump
So
into it?
sure,
Okay,
sure.
I'll do my spiel and then we'll get into these questions. And also, just so you know, we do record this space and it will then be posted on YouTube so people can reference it in the future as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
So for anyone joining us, thank you. We're thrilled to be we're thrilled to be chatting about efficiency and governance within DAOs with Eyal from DeepDAO, as well as CharmVerse co-founder Alex Poon. I'm also Alex, and I'm the community manager for CharmVerse. CharmVerse is a Web3 operations platform handling docs, tasks, bounties, and proposals. It's a place for team contributors to coordinate day-to-day work, sign in with crypto wallets, and unlock workspaces with tokens and NFTs. Any listeners, please share the space so we can get more people in here. So again, thank you, Eyal and Alex. I'm excited to be speaking with both of you today. So Eyal, why don't we start by familiarizing people with DeepDAO and what you're doing over there?
Terrific. Thanks, Alex, and thanks, Alex. Thanks, both of you, and CharmVerse for inviting me to this event. And I'm Eyal. I'm the founder of DeepDAO. And DeepDAO is dedicated to DAOs. This is what we do all day, and we've been doing this for about 2 years, at least over 2 years by now, actually. And we're collecting information about DAOs, data about DAOs from everywhere we can put our hands on. So governance systems, treasuries, multiple chains, everything that is relevant to DAOs, we collect it and we do our best to organize it in ways that would make all this data accessible. And really making data accessible and coherent is our biggest passion. We're coming from DAOs. Most of us are familiar, are in the DAO ecosystem for a while now, and we believe in transparency of information and in people making decisions based on data. And so this is what we do.
Well, we recently announced CharmVerse's integration with DeepDAO, which we're super excited about. And with this integration, now CharmVerse users can have insight into their DAO's governance and structure and members and decision making. And like you said, that's all through the analytics and information gathering and data that you offer. So really excited about that. And this integration actually ties directly into what we're talking about today, which is the efficiency as well as the ability to quantify and measure the dynamics of governance processes within DAOs. So let's start by talking about overall efficiency. So within a DAO, the idea is that all the members have a voice, which could lead to smarter decision making on behalf of the DAO's mission. However, this can create challenges as far as the efficiency because it can take a while to go through this process, especially with a larger DAO. So what are your thoughts on this? Would you lean towards a delegation model to create a more streamlined process?
So actually, I'm not a big fan of delegation. I believe more in departments, and I think that to make some decisions in any kind of group, whether it's a company or just a few people or any type of an organization, really, you need some decisions require a lot of people to be involved, or you would want many people to be involved. For example, in a democratic state, and for some decisions, you really need a fast decision. You need to make a snap decision right now. And I think that having different departments with different responsibility is probably a better way to go. And I can actually bring an example from one system that does that, like the substrate governance system. They have something they call democracy, in which all the token voters are participating, and then there is council, which is like the state. If you use a state metaphor, it's like the government. And then they have something they call the technical committee, and that's a fast decision group that makes decisions regarding the protocol, like bug that needs to be immediately fixed. And the committee can make decisions within minutes. So I believe in this model.
Yeah, so I share some of the similar perspective. When you think about, I think in parallel, like outside of DAO, right? Like what are some of the most voted, issues that you can take a parallel to, governments, right? Like voting for your elected officials. That if you look at things like turnouts, it's generally not very great, particularly in the United States. I can't speak to some of the other countries. Particularly when you look at some of the local elections, that the turnout, when you look at the actual number, they are very, very low compared to the population that are there, right? So I think there is just sometimes human behaviors on, when would people decide to go out and vote. And I think it speaks to some of the areas on like, well, would my vote matter, or would I believe that my vote matter, or how would that impact me, or even if my vote matter, how does that impact my day-to-day life or my day-to-day interaction with my community? I think that's very true as well for within a DAO, that some of these proposals, I think people acquire token for different reasons, and sometimes perhaps they just simply don't care about some of the governance sides of things. Maybe just buying the token, hoping for the token to go up in prices.
Yes. Oh, go ahead. Eyal, go ahead.
Well, I think there are a few problems that I'm familiar with regarding regarding voter turnout. And of course, some people buy the tokens and they just did it because they invested in it, and then they don't really feel empowered enough or interested enough. And there's also the problem of expertise. Some of these decisions are pretty complex, and to really participate in a meaningful way, you have to invest a lot of time and energy and understanding to really get to this, to get to feel that you're voting in a meaningful way. And I guess this is where delegation comes in, where the idea is that I would choose an expert and let them vote for me. And I can say why I don't like this model, but yeah, this is one of the problems.
Right, and I think you earlier you brought up a point about departments, right? I also see sort of similarly. Maybe a really large DAO is not necessarily the best idea when it comes to governance. Perhaps the better model is a set of sub-DAOs or sub-DAOs or sub-DAOs, right? So that the decision making oftentimes would be sort of local to the small group, and it matters to the small group, and that it might not even need to be a vote, because if you're working with a sub-DAO of 10 people, 5 people, I think a lot of decision can be made within that group of, that have a shared vision, a much higher level of trust and relationship between the people. And I think then you can probably abstract away only a few decisions need to be voted on by the sort of the whole collective for things like perhaps like resource allocation, right? Like should we fund this department, or should we fund this sub-DAO, or should we fund this project? But once that sort of meta decision is made, then letting the sub-DAO or the sub-DAO to execute.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that the whole community can decide to allocate a certain amount of money for marketing, for example, or for development. And then you create a group of people that are interested in development, and hopefully are capable of doing that, and you allocate them a budget, and they decide how to allocate it themselves within the group. And I think that's this model is proven to work.
Right, because I think it ties to some of these concerns that we even just talked about, right? Like how many people have expertise in marketing across the whole DAO, right? So if every marketing decision, like should we post ads, here or versus there? How much money should we spend on that particular ad? Like a regular member within the DAO, maybe an engineer, maybe a designer that might not have any marketing experience. So like, how do they even vote? Like, what are they voting for? Or how does that vote contribute to the quality of that decision? So I think like
exactly, and I think if the DAO is working right, then there could be controversial decisions like spending money on banners in a site that is potentially not something that all the members are interested in. So if work relationships are good, then the marketing department would come to the whole community and tell them, hey, look, we want to do this thing or that thing, and we're not sure about it. Help us decide.
So you mentioned controversial decisions. Say you go the delegation route. What is a way that you could prevent abuse around delegation?
Yeah, I think
especially
that
when you're talking.
So, Alex, are you still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear both of you.
Okay.
Oh. So I was just asking
hear...
about those controversial decisions and like how.
Alex.
Oh, can you hear me? Eyal, can you hear me? Okay,
yes.
Alex Poon is not here.
Let's keep going. Sorry.
Okay, so we were talking about controversial decisions, and if you go the delegation route, how can you prevent abuse around that? As can definitely happen.
Alex, do you want to go first?
So for some reason,
I could too.
Yeah, actually, would you? So I cannot hear our Alex speaking. But I somehow can hear you, Eyal.
Very strange.
So if you go first, I can glean from what the topic is.
Okay, terrific. So the question was, how do you prevent abuse of the delegation system? And I guess first I would have to mention why am I not a fan of delegation? And I think delegation replicates something that is not great within our existing governance systems, and namely the star system. And I think that you, in delegation models, you sort of create these people who are expert or considered experts, and they become the people who make all the decisions. And since we know power gets into people's heads and they want to stay like that, then you open the door for people really fighting to stay a delegate, or fighting to get votes, or sometimes maybe even buying votes, which is very easy to do in token communities. So and delegation really comes to solve the problem of expertise, because the delegates do have the time to put in the time and the effort to understand decisions that are being made. And so my solution would be to try to solve the problem of expertise in a different way. And there could be, I guess, several ways. But how do you prevent people from, let's say you have 10 delegates making decisions for 10,000 people and they control the entire pool of money? I don't know how you prevent that. You can have bylaws, you can have regulations, you can have the smart contracts prevent that potentially. But it's going to be difficult because, again, delegates are like the popular people, and the popular people would be able to control the money and spend it on PR and all that. And there you have it. It's the system we're familiar with, and is problematic.
So, do you think that a couple of practice can make it a little bit better? So, I think including things like make it easier or make it more frequently possible to replace the delegate, or change your delegate, right? So I think one of the challenges, again, using a parallel to state government, the problem is that there's all these term limits, so that even if you elected the wrong person, you have to wait sometimes 2, 4, multiple years before you can elect again. Right? Versus, I think in crypto, you can, if you make it easier for someone to just, take back the delegation, that I guess give a little bit more threat to the election, to the elected candidate, to do the right thing.
That sounds like that's a good idea. So term limits are flexible. I mean, that could work.
Yeah, and I can also see that, like, again, talking about transparency, right, which is good, and natural in crypto, is that being able to surface some of these things like voting patterns and quality of the decisions, make it easier to understand for the community. Which I think so it's very centered to what DeepDAO is providing. I can see that could make it, again, easier for the community to say, yeah, this person might be really popular, but they might not be necessarily be making the right choices for the DAO, or the decision that we made are not necessarily good for the DAO. But being able to present it in a data and an engaging way.
Yes, absolutely. I think transparency is the biggest thing about crypto DAOs, and understanding voting patterns and understanding what do the delegates or any person with power are doing with their power. Like, are they dominating the DAO, or are they letting other people become get involved? That's a big thing for sure. And it's true, it's true for delegation, and it's true for all the other voting systems. Being able to see what's going on and understanding the DAO in a deeper way than in which you can understand existing organizations is, to me, one of the biggest things, and it is indeed what we're doing in DeepDAO. This is the type of data we're surfacing.
Yeah. So actually on that, right, and this is sort of outside. So do you have an idea what is a good way to present some of this data? So certainly, if I go to the DeepDAO right now, right, like it's a list of proposal, which one worked, which one didn't. Like, so how do you guys think about presenting that in a typical user consumable way?
Yeah, so this is really an interesting question, and it's a challenge. And I think what you see now is sort of historically what we did it in DeepDAO from the early on, and before we had developing power and design power and all that. And but I think you can surface it visually much better than what we currently do. You can have, for example, you can show visually the people who vote with you, and do they vote with you, or do they vote normally against you, and who are the people you are most cooperating with, and who are the people who are your antagonists, and really what's the quality of the governance system in all sorts of graphs and other visual ways that would make it more approachable for you.
Right. No, those actually, I mean, I would love to see some of those visualization, right? Even just talking about it, because I think there's a fascinating thing that it's much harder to get in other voting process. But like all these things that happen are on chain and transparent to the whole DAO. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, imagine you could see how your neighbors are voting in your neighborhood DAO, and I mean, this could be dangerous, of course, because people would start fighting. But in fact, it could also be a way to bring the community together if you see that the people around you think like you.
Right.
Do you guys have an opinion? Alex, can you hear me at all? He still can't. Okay. Do you have an opinion on like the best method of voting?
I'll just repeat what you said for Alex.
Thank you.
So Alex is saying, what's our idea about the best method for voting? And I can take that first. I think that what we do with DeepDAO, we're just launching a tool called Brainstorm, and it's a way for token communities to discuss and express support or disapproval using their tokens. And we're putting in two voting systems we're making two voting systems visual. So one person, one vote, and one token, one vote. And you can see, for example, that 17 people are supporting your proposal and 12 are against it. But these 12 that are against it have twice more tokens than the 17 who are supporting it. And so it's a hybrid system. It's a hybrid system that combines like the regular system of one person, one vote that we see in modern democracies, and the one token, one vote that we see in many of the token communities. And I think that's a pretty good system, and you could incorporate the delegation into this. So you could see that maybe certain people of the ones who support you who are against you are delegates, in fact, and they control a lot of tokens that belong to other people. So in effect, they are representing more people, and once you get, it becomes almost too complex conceptually. But once you look into visualizing it, it's actually very possible to do. And once you do that, then you have a system that includes several other systems, and it has a lot more information, and you know much better what does the community think about your proposal, and how are people voting. And so I think crypto DAOs allow you to do hybrid systems, and I think this seems to me like a very good direction to go in.
So it's more of a almost like a temperature check, but using your sort of real token power.
Yeah, Brainstorm is a temperature check using your tokens and yourself. So you yourself are one vote, and if you have 100 tokens, then you represent these 100 tokens.
Yeah.
And again, in Brainstorm, we don't decide for you who's winning because the tool is meant for temperature check.
Yeah.
But you could use it as a system for making decisions.
So in terms of voting system, what do you think of quadratic voting? Right, it's kind of using the same quadratic formula that Gitcoin is using for granting funds, but actually using that for votes, which I think is being suggested by like Gitcoin and Vitalik and others.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like you're adding complexity, but not necessarily helping people make informed decisions. So it obviously works well for Gitcoin. Gitcoin is enormously successful, but I don't. If you're already faced with making decisions about complex issues. So now I need to decide what portion of my tokens are going in there. I don't know. It adds a lot of complexity from my point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I just see that. I mean, maybe it is like complexity for complexity's sake, right? But yeah, sometimes I think of that like that. Maybe that's just a good balance between the token weight versus sort of giving more power to the individuals so that their voice matter, but not to the point of one person, one vote.
Yeah, I mean, it has its benefits for sure.
Yeah.
Alex, I made you a co-host. Can you hear me now? Still no. Okay, moving on. So what do you guys think as we're talking about voting? Would you trust national elections to be done on the blockchain?
So Alex just turned you into a co-host, but you still cannot hear her. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So, you know what?
Okay.
I'll let Alex answer the next question. I'm gonna leave and rejoin the space.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, please keep going. So I'll be right back.
Okay. So the question was okay. Everybody else heard the question, I assume. I read this question a couple of times in the email you sent with the list of questions, and I'm not really qualified to answer that. I don't think we have enough information about the existing voting systems in blockchains, and I know that some elections already run on blockchain as an experiment in some towns. I think Vokdoni ran a few elections. Vokdoni is owned by Aragon, and their entire goal is to create systems for this type of large-scale elections. But I don't have enough information to say, would you be able to really run full national elections to do that? I would like to see that, of course.
Yeah, I mean, there's just such fragility in the governance space at this stage, so it seems like it could be risky. Alex, are you back? Can you hear me?
I am back and I can hear you. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. All right. Do you have thoughts on running national elections using the blockchain?
Yeah, I do. I mean, well, I do in the sense that, so I think what we have right now with the DAO ecosystem is that we have a really rare chance to run a lot of experiments related to human interactions and decision making and coordination. And I think we should take that opportunity to run these experiments and not necessarily rush to push some of these ideas to, well, some of these really big, big systems that matter, like governance, right? So I would hold off on things like national election, but hopefully that the ecosystem, our community, like would learn from all the different iterations that we're trying and experiments that we're running, and then like for whatever strong output that we come out of these experiments, we can then leverage those and push these a more battle tested system to a larger scale, including national elections.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. I'm totally excited about the level of experimentation in the ecosystem, and it's true we don't need to rush it into to go directly into the hardest place to do.
So let's jump away from voting for a moment and talk decentralization, which is one of the major pillars of Web3. One, how realistic is it that things are fully decentralized? And also, do you think that's optimal, if that is possible? Or would you go more moderate or centralized, in your opinion?
So I think that there are several components here. One is the level of the blockchain, and whether the blockchain is decentralized and the voting is on chain versus off chain voting. And I think I would like to see everything on chain, but right now the most successful voting system is Snapshot, and that's off chain. And but is this ideal? I'm not sure. I would like to see everything go on chain, and so transparency is maximized, and there's full censorship resistance and all these good things. So that's the level of the infrastructure, and then the level of the human interaction, the politics. I don't think we're even close to full decentralization. No human interaction is at this point. There's always the people who surface to the top, and we see that in the DAO ecosystem as well, obviously. And again, DeepDAO's mission is to show this, so there is transparency, and you can see who are the influential people and who are the ones who just follow, and who dominates, and which coalitions are the ones that are important in a DAO and which aren't. And so, yeah, I think we're moving towards decentralization. I think this type of interaction and this level of transparency would bring us towards more and more decentralization in the way groups manage themselves, and I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, so I'm all for transparency. I think like that's certainly a big piece of unlock, being using blockchain. Although I'm not sure if we would ever be sort of fully decentralized, or is it a good idea? Because I don't think it's fundamentally it's not human nature, and fundamentally we actually do depend on each other and leverage the trust and reputation that we build. We might be moving these level of trust from our in-person interaction to online. So I mean, think about it is that like when Ethereum decided to, split, forked into, Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, that was a centralized decision, right? And it was done because of people believing one group versus another, and it took that the dirty word like politics and persuasion and influence to make that happen, right? Because again, fundamentally, it's human human interactions. But I think we're having a chance to see it on chain is what gets me excited.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I don't think politics is going away, and I think politics is, of course, it has awful reputation in our times because politicians is almost synonymous with power, and power is almost synonymous with corruption these days. But I think politics it can be a good thing. It means that you're talking with people, that you're trying to convince them to change their mind, and better decisions can be made thanks to politics.
So we are running a bit short on time, but there's one question I definitely want to get to, and it's talking about kind of an example of flawed governance. So let's talk Tribe DAO, where an initial vote was overturned by leadership, essentially saying your first vote doesn't count because we didn't get the outcome we want. So it seems like currently there's little that a community member could do in this case. So what do you do when your vote doesn't count?
Okay, so before I became part of the DAO ecosystem, I was an activist in several groups. And these groups had decentralized ambitions, and everybody wanted everybody's votes to be heard. And the result was that eventually 2 or 3 people were dominating the community, and there was nothing we could do about it. And I think let's see what happened in Tribe DAO. So there was a vote, there was a hack, and $80 million were stolen. And then there was a vote by the community on Snapshot, and community decided to refund everybody, to issue a refund and for the protocol to pay the money back. And the protocol had the money. And then several people who dominate the vote decided that this vote doesn't count. The Snapshot vote was not directly tied to any treasury, so it was just a signal vote, and it didn't trigger any action directly. And then so there was a space for the people for the influential people to say, okay, we veto that vote and we issue a new vote, and we're not going to do any refund. And I think it's more complex than what it looks like, because for one thing, this thing happens all the time in the real world. In small communities, in big communities, we always see one decision being overruled. Like one government makes one decision, then the second government comes along and they change that decision back, like you guys in the US. So the US signed the Paris Agreement for climate agreement, and then I think that was in the Obama administration. Then Trump came and he overruled that, and then Biden came and he returned the country into the agreement. And so this stuff happens in the real world all the time, and it's not always a bad thing. These are important decisions. This was an $80 million decision. It's okay if the community wavers. But is it overall an okay thing? No, I don't think so, because the people who dominated the second vote changed the rules of the game in the middle. So I think there needs to be transparency, and we learned something from it. Communities should tell people the vote, the initial vote or the snapshot vote has the power to do one thing, and the multi-sig signers have the power to veto it in this and that condition. And once you do that, and you know it's binding, then I think it's okay to overrule decisions. Again, in certain conditions, in certain terms, and these things need to be on the table ahead of time. And I'd like to see more DAO communities embrace this.
Right. So I think in the Web2 world, when you make, there's different levels of promises, right? Like I'm sure companies, people break promises all the time, but at the same time, if some of these more serious promises, you end up having legal documents, having lawyers, having enforcement agency to make these things real, right? So Elon Musk decided that he wants to buy Twitter, signed a clause with a particular penalty amount of paying at least $1 billion for the acquisition. He might be on the hook for that, right? Because of that. But but not because he didn't want to. He would just walk away. But it's that there is a sort of counter agency in enforcing some of those actions. We don't quite have that in crypto. I think maybe some parallel of that would be, actually smart contract that trigger right after the first vote is completed, right? I think that would have been executing on that action automatically. But without that, I think it's like that's what we're missing, right? There's no recourse, or there's no third party to enforce that disagreement.
It was actually something that the people who created the initial platforms thought about. So, the initial 3 DAO platforms that I'm familiar with, like Aragon, DAOs, DAO Stack, all of them, once the community made a decision, code was executed on the blockchain and money moved or didn't move it. Money moved if the proposal was accepted. And that was automatic. And at least one of them, Aragon, created a system for dispute resolution that is decentralized. And the idea was that you would be able to apply. There would be like a silent time, like maybe 1 or 2 days after the decision, and people could appeal that and try to have it disputed. So there are mechanisms to do that on the blockchain for sure. They're not widely implemented yet. It's a good question why.
Well, with that, guys, unless you have kind of like a closing statement, I think we're pretty much out of time. Any last words on governance and efficiency within DAOs?
Yeah, go vote. Go play around if you haven't done that yet. Join a DAO, buy some tokens, dive into a couple of proposals and the protocol, and try to understand enough to vote on the next proposal. It's a good feeling. It's fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a new way of getting involved into project that you believe in and actually having an impact on the decision making. So I think that's something special.
Yep.
Go out there and vote, everyone, in your DAOs and also in real life. Go out there to vote in your elections. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and hearing your views on efficiency and governance within DAOs. Thank you again for taking the time to do this. And listeners, please go give a follow to DeepDAO. It's at DeepDAO _IO. And Eyal is at EITHCO. And then Alex Poon _HK, and of course CharmVerse, where you are right now. So please give everyone a follow their journey and what they're doing. We're really excited about what we're building at CharmVerse. Like I said, we're working on our proposal builder right now, super exciting. And DeepDAO, keep an eye on them, because if you're a part of a DAO, you're going to want to know what your members are doing. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Pleasure.
Thank you. Take care.
And have a great rest of your week.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.